every victim, every perpetrator, the intent or the degree of awareness and the impact it will probably be different. It's really quite important to speak to the victim or even speak to the perpetrator and actually help them understand the experience and process it. So it's not just victims. I think the perpetrators need help.
Welcome to Singapore Unpacked, a podcast series by the Institute of Policy Studies, Singapore. I'm your host, Liang Kaixin, Associate Director and also a former journalist. Today, we will dive into a deeply unsettling yet urgent issue, the rise of deepfake pornography. So in the wake of a recent incident at Singapore Sports School, where students allegedly circulated deepfake nude images of their peers, many are asking what kind of damage does this do to their trust, their mental health, and safety among youth, and what can we do about it? So to help us unpack this, we're joined by two guests. We have Dr. Annabelle Chow, a clinical psychologist who has worked extensively with adolescents and adults. And we have Dr. Chu Han Yi, a senior research fellow at IPS, and he studies digital behavior, trust, and the social impacts of technology. Yeah. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me.
So, Kaixin,
Yes.
so other than my researcher role at IPS, I also sit on the board of a non-profit called SG Her Empowerment, and it runs the Singapore's first dedicated support center for victims of online harms. It's SHE, or SG Her Empowerment for short.
Yeah, great. Let's start with the first question first. Some context. So I would like to ask, how widespread is the use or circulation of deepfake pornography among youth today, both globally and in Singapore?
Yeah, I don't know about you, but it's really hard to get very precise numbers for these because the deepfake abusers are definitely underreported. So whatever official figures that people are reporting, it's a smaller number than what it actually is. But the warning signs are here. So I was looking back at SHE's national study in 2023. About 10% said they experienced what we call image-based sexual abuse, and those include deepfakes. So out of that 10%, we don't know how much is image-based, like nudes, actual nudes, and how much of it it's deepfakes. At She Cares, these cases, the deepfakes and the image-based sexual abuse, now rank among the top online harms that young people are coming to us with. And I think what's concerning is that when they come to us, they don't know how to report these harms. Right? Sometimes they have to circle around helplessly before they find She, and where we can provide that service to the wraparound service to help them. And then when we talk to them about, in the survey rather, half of them don't know of any legal options, and there are legal options. So I guess maybe just one more point, which is the most worrying concern for me, that young people, you talk to them, they don't know what counts as a harm. They don't know when they look at these images, it's not harmful.
Are you sure?
Look at, it's not a Singapore problem. You look at the case with Taylor Swift, that when the image itself, the deepfake image was shared, 45 million times, or viewed 45 million times before it was taken down, right? At least 45 users thought it was okay to view or share these images. Right?
Okay. So Annabelle, then as a psychologist, do you see many of these victims going to you looking for counseling or therapy services?
I think this actually, I'm in support of what Dr. Chu just said, right? Because it is underreported. And I think the underreport doesn't mean there's an absence. If you look at globally, the numbers and statistics are actually quite high, but locally, we don't really have the numbers to support them. And I think one of the main drivers for the lack of report is, besides the fact that they don't really know what their options are, they don't really know where to, what kind of legal options they have or where they can seek help. I think the other one is a bit like a feeling of shame that they feel that makes it difficult for them to seek help. So even in a clinical setting, the clients that I have seen come into my clinic for these reasons, they're not very upfront to say, I'm here because I have been a victim of deepfake. That's not something that they straight away say. Because even in processing it, right, they themselves would also believe that, actually, this is bullying, maybe they didn't really mean this harm. So I think there's a lot of, broadly speaking, a bit of like even gaslighting themselves. They are very confused about the experience themselves, and they may not necessarily really put their minds to the fact that, hey, this is harm, like this is serious psychological harm or emotional harm done to me. So even when they're sharing their experience with me, I find that it takes me quite a number of sessions to actually dig and investigate a little bit more until I get to the root of it that, actually you were a victim of this deepfake pornography, and it happened with someone who was really close, like it was a dorm mate, it was a friend, or like a friend's sibling, and it is actually not okay. So I think there's a deficit of education, even not only about the options available, but also what it really entails, and that how do you actually characterize it.
Okay.
I want to corroborate with what Annabelle has shared, which is I'm not a trained counselor, but from the stories that the counselors have been sharing with us, when the clients, we call them clients, when the clients come, it does take some time to walk through with them before they even realize that, it's those images. It is those images that are affecting me. Because when they present themselves initially, they may not say that it's the images, right? It may be like school bullying, people being not nice to me. So I feel stressed.
Yes.
I feel down. And then when the counselors work through with them, then you realize, it's those images.
So my own hypothesis is that I think half of it is a lack of awareness, but I also wonder, because it also kind of fits into the profile where it is now also difficult for them to trust someone, because this is like a relational trauma, right? And every time they come to me, at least at the beginning stages, I'm this brand new person, they haven't actually spoken to me, they don't really know me from anywhere. They have a friend do that to them.
So it's always a friend, is it? I mean, because we know that the sports school is their classmates, right? But in your experience...
So I don't think it's like always, but more often than not, actually it's someone that they know.
Right. Most of the time.
Yeah.
So we think it will be like the malicious bad actors trying to do that, but we found that in the cases, very often the clients or the survivors, they know the person who's doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
They generally have a relationship with them. So they do feel that deep sense of betrayal. It usually comes with a lot of shock and disbelief. And then a lot of times they might minimize it and play it down, because I have a relationship with this person. This person must not be trying to hurt me or harm me. Maybe this person is just doing it for fun, but it really hurts me. So I think it's quite complex in the sense where they're very confused, and especially immediately aftermath, they are trying to kind of figure out or process what had happened. But also the other part is, because it's a relational trauma done by someone they actually know and know for quite some time, I think it just means that it takes longer and probably a bit harder to trust another person. And so I feel like this deepfake thing is like a canvas. I think the deeper root issues, right, besides the fact that it's so widely available and there's all these things happening with the technology and how fast-paced it is, I think it really provides a bit of a canvas to how we would then interact with each other socially on that social landscape and the kind of society that we live in.
But it also depends on where did the deepfake land up, right? If it's circulating within your friends or even further in Telegram group chats or in public platforms, right?
So I think where it actually gets circulated, in my experience, personally, is not so
not that big an issue?
important, right? Like, as in, it's the fact that it was circulated.
Correct.
It is the fact that people had seen it and has access. But if you ask them, is it a WhatsApp channel or Telegram? Like, it's to them, it's out there.
I think it's mostly the fear, the kind of the thought, the overwhelming thought, thinking that it's out there.
And that people will believe that that is me.
Okay.
Yes, even though they know, they look at the image, they know this is not me. This picture is not me. But the kind of surrounding worries around just that image. Sometimes it's beyond that image. It's like what people would think of them. right? Would people really think that I would do something like this?
Yeah.
Right. And then the kind of sideways look
Yeah.
that their immediate surroundings, people in their immediate surroundings give them, real or imagined, right? Judgment, right?
Yeah.
That they think that everybody is judging them, whether they are or not.
And appropriately, I think that's a really natural response because they have been a victim of relational trauma and betrayal. Naturally, we will be more hyper-vigilant, right? It'll be hard to trust people and what people's intentions are. And appropriately, I think that heightened sense of hypervigilance is actually quite survivalistic and understandable.
Yeah. I recall reports that, so you mentioned, Kaixin, you mentioned the Singapore Sports Schools incident.
Yeah.
Before that,
Okay.
I was actually quite worried because a year ago, I was keeping an eye out for it because I think it first broke, this kind of deepfake images first broke in Spain, in like quite a remote area, and then it was like schoolboys using apps that they had on the phone to create deepfake nudes of their own classmates, the female classmates. So the report also shared that the girls were very, very traumatized and they had panic attacks and they avoided school altogether, right? So then when it came to Singapore, it was like, oh, okay, it's here. It didn't take too long.
Of course.
It didn't take too long for
Yeah.
that to come from Spain to Singapore. And the sports school incident was the first prominent case where it was young people creating deepfake images of their own schoolmates, right? It's not just some bad actor profiteering on the dark web, right? So I think what Annabelle shared is particularly important because it is that trust when you have people in your immediate kind of circles doing that to a young person.
I think my challenge when I work clinically with them as well is when I propose to them and try to label it as a relational trauma, more often than not, I get very confused responses because I think traditionally people recognize trauma that it needs to be a huge, significant event. Like I need to be in a car crash, I need to be a victim of rape or sexual assault or in a plane crash, and people can acknowledge this as trauma and that, yeah, I can get PTSD from those and it's legitimate. But these incidences, they don't actually acknowledge it to be trauma.
Okay.
And it does require me to help them understand that we've got big T's and small T's and, big traumas, small traumas. And this is a form of relational trauma where it's characterized by betrayal. It brings up a lot of sense of like mistrust and shame and having to be careful to watch your back now and all that. And in itself, that is an education. Because until they could label the experience of that, they are critically judgmental of themselves. Not only the anxiety about what's out there, but also the fact that why am I making this a big deal? Like people should know, like there's some people who should know this is deepfake, right? That this is not me. So they also have this very internal exhaustion or internal fatigue of push and pull. Cognitively, on one hand, I understand some of my friends and my family all know this deepfake is not real. But emotionally, I still feel the impact. But why do I feel the impact when I know people know it's not real? But even at the same time, with how it spreads like fire, someone may see it and not know it's real.
Okay.
Right? And I did actually, one of my clients showed me an image. I didn't even know it was deepfake.
Okay.
Like it's hard to tell these days.
The technology these days, they are hyper realistic. Right?
Yeah.
And when they have a source image to work with or a few source images to work with, they can come up with things that are very, very realistic.
Right? So it is much more advanced than Photoshop now, right?
I think Photoshop is like our time.
20 years ago.
Yeah. Right now, I think if it doesn't even need to be a video. They can take a still image of someone and create a video out of it. It's not even like a deep fake still. It's a deep fake video or from a still. So, and it's quite easily accessible, some of these technology.
But Annabelle, I'm very interested in what you say when the victims know that it's not their own body, they didn't do it. So I just wanted to ask, like, between victims of deepfake images versus like nudes that were leaked, were there any like major differences in how the victims respond and react?
Actually, that's a really good question. And I think in my experience, actually the very little difference, if any, because actually this is not different from, even if you think about someone. So I also have another client, they were taking, so it's just really in a relationship, right? And then they took nude photos of each other and then they shared. Unfortunately, when they broke up, then that was circulated, right? So then that anxiety, that fear, that guilt, that shame, that distress, it's actually not different from clients and victims who have experienced deepfake. The emotional experience, the thoughts that they have, that's not actually significantly different. And broadly speaking, they're both trauma.
So coming back to the sports school case, right? Why is it so shocking, and how it struck such a nerve in our Singapore's public consciousness? What do you think it tells us about our youth and our tech misuse today?
Well, we both shared why on the trust, right? It's young people doing things to other young people in their circles. So I think that that mistrust it engenders, right? Or the breakdown of trust, actually. That's how I would characterize it. It's significant. For me, what connects like the Singapore Sports School incident as well as the Spanish one that I talked about was there is the breakdown in basic human decency. That the standards have changed where for me that it's okay to do this to another person that right? I think that needs to be addressed, right? It's the breakdown of our notions of human decency, our standards for what's acceptable to do to another human being.
I have a slightly more controversial spin to that.
Okay.
I'll get to that in a while.
Okay.
But for me, right, what it was it was shocking because it's the Singapore Sports School.
Oh, okay.
Right, because it's in an elite school, it's representative of the country. And with athletes, generally, we all have a higher expectation that you have a higher degree of professionalism, ethical behavior, discipline. Athletes need to be really disciplined to be good at what they do. It also made me query about how they're handling their stress levels. Because we don't want to also forget that this act can also be like a compensatory measure, right? Like I feel really stressed, I don't know what to do, and then I'm just, everybody's doing it, so I do it too. That's why it really kind of was a bit more shocking for me because of the definition of the Singapore Sports School, our athletes. These are supposed to be our cream of the top type of people. I have a slightly different spin to you about how like humanity has kind of degraded. I think, in my opinion, I think it's always been the case.
In what sense?
In the sense that I think I'm not. How do I put this? I think that the only difference between then and now is that it's more accessible and it's a different methodology. But I'm not so convinced that our humanity is significantly degraded as opposed to actually similar incidences would have happened prior to having the deepfake technology.
Okay.
It's just that now it's more accessible. Now people also have more awareness. Now people report it. But say, like if I think about it, bullying happened in different forms. This is a form of bullying, and bullying is all time, old school. Decades ago it happened. It's just that then we had moved from traditional bullying to digital bullying. And then the digital bullying now has advanced into this deepfake technology. And I think the humanity as is, you will always have people who are more empathetic, people who are more considerate, people who are more people who are kinder and more careful about the impact of our behaviors on others, and there are people who are more careless about it or maybe unaware. And if you think about usually this population is generally the adolescents.
Okay, young boys.
Young boys, yes. So two stages, right? One is the adolescent and one's the boy, right? But if you think about all the adolescents, neurodevelopmentally, it makes sense because they don't actually have a fully developed brain. Our brains only fully develop around the age of 25. So up till 25, without a full capacity, you make impulsive decisions. You cannot really see the long-term consequences of your behavior. You probably would be, during that time, you're also trying to find your own identity. You're trying to fit in. So if your friends do it, there's a bit of a social learning theory there. Your friends do it, and then people laugh, people get accepted in the group. You get a lot of likes, so I'll do the same, and then I'll be accepted. It's a period of time where you are trying to be part of something, you're trying to find out about yourself, and you're probably making a lot of impulsive, lack of a better description, stupid decisions, right? And if it's so accessible,
then it's very easy to do it, right?
right? And there's no adult supervision. I can be using my phone in the toilet, in my bedroom. My parents are not going to know about that.
So agree on the life stage and
The psyche
undeveloped
of the
prefrontal
perpetrators.
cortex, right?
Yes.
I think that's the technical term for it. But I want to round back to my decency point, or maybe let me reframe it this way,
Okay.
right? If not decency, let's think about our social norms in terms of with kind of sexual content. It has ebbed and flow over different societies and different eras, right? So other than the life stage, maybe we can also think about it as like a generational norms. Like if you ask the middle age or the slightly more senior people like me, then what
Like
is
us.
Yeah,
Like us.
very kind to join me. Their notions of what is acceptable in terms of sexual content, right? Like topless pictures, no. Right? My teachers in school, the topless pictures, no, right? So that is unacceptable. But if you ask some of the young people about topless images, they just said, it's not that bad, right? Not like egregious.
Okay.
Right. So I may be a boomer and say, I definitely cannot. But I think there are some generational differences.
Or maybe some changes, right? Maybe in the past, it will be very unacceptable to send nudes to each other, but in recent
she
days,
brought
it
up a good
became...
point. This send nudes to it.
Correct. So in early days, right, actually I got clients who boomer generation
Don't point him.
us. But it's remember the webcam?
Yeah.
Skype? So stopped recently, but it started there. And even when I was younger, actually even our earlier generation phones, when you could start sending photos, it existed already.
Yeah.
We came from that generation where we were using those old big phones, and then when you can first start sending images, it's really exciting, right? It started actually from there, but it was harder. The access wasn't there, technology wasn't there.
Internet was slower.
Correct.
Load an image.
Right? But actually the act is not different. It's just that it was less accessible, technology not so advanced, it's harder. People were probably a little bit more harsher. Not everybody had phones at that point.
I think so.
Yeah, and maybe most people even, I remember this, computers used to be in the living room. I don't know about you, but not like my phone, not in the bedroom. And because you had to dial it with that cable attached to the wall, right? So visibility was there. It was harder to do naughty things.
Okay.
Right.
But what about the motivation then? Because I think you mentioned bullying, and I think maybe some boys are doing it for fun. But what does it speak about these boys who are doing it as if they are objectifying women?
Definitely, I think the objectification is a consideration. And so earlier I was saying, right, one is the adolescents, cause underdeveloped, incomplete development, not underdeveloped, but incomplete development of their brain. But usually you will find the news reports are usually boys doing it. on girls. And in some sense, that's also appropriate because actually boys, they tend to be more impulsive compared to women. Their risk-taking behaviors tend to be higher than women, especially when they have a reward of being accepted or, people laugh, people like. It tends to be higher than women, than girls. So actually, generally, it's boys. And that couples in with exactly what you're saying about objectification. From time immemorial, women have been objectified.
A quick stat, 96% of the deepfake porn or images generated are about women.
Okay.
So just 4% men.
Yeah. So even if you think if I just think aloud, right, in terms of feelings, being more connected with feelings, being more aware of feelings, stereotypically, generally women are a bit more in touch. Girls are a bit more in touch. They're more emotionally aware. They're more sensitive. So even when you're thinking about adolescents, right, girls tend to be more at the emotional stage where they may be a bit more weepy, but they're more verbal about their emotions, and the boys may just be a bit more physically aggressive, or they might distract themselves, or they might do air quote stupid things. So the way of coping is different. So generally you'll find that more boys will do it to girls.
Okay.
That's it. You spoke about intent. I'm not sure if many of them are doing it maliciously, as in they really want to harm somebody, another human being, or their friends, right? Very often, I think when we talk to the young people, they would say, well, the boys don't think about the consequences. Right? They don't think about consequences.
Okay.
But they would say, I thought it was a harmless prank.
So euphemistic labeling, it's just a meme.
Yes, you do hear a lot of that.
It's just AI art.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
So they reduce it to something that is harmless.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Or they may diffuse responsibility. Everybody's doing it. I'm not the only one. Right. So I think these different factors, including the fact that actually a lot of these, when they do it and then they send, we have to also consider is sometimes it's anonymous, right? So if it's anonymous, it actually detaches our morality from it as well. Because if it's the responsibility that we have attached to this significantly reduces. That's where we get our concept of people say keyboard warriors, right? You hide behind a computer. And even now still the online bullying with the typing and everything, and people can be quite brutal about it. In the same vein, if I send an image and actually I go under an alias, it's not even my real name, then it detaches my responsibility and my morality. And also that is the stage where they want to be accepted also, right? So maybe when they do that and then their friends laugh about it, they get a few likes, they get the kick out of that without, with that incomplete neural development, without thinking about the actual consequences that they have on the victim. But I think probably one key factor, I think psychologically is, which I think is quite an important consideration, is oftentimes, or maybe sometimes, it will be what I call narcissistic injury. Because it's during this developmental phase where adolescents are oscillating between being vulnerable and being grandiose.
Okay.
So I can do all these things and I'm superior.
And get away with it.
Yes, and superior. And it's sometimes stemming from control. I want control. So actually a lot of times I understand this deepfake thing is not so much is sexual, even though the content is, but it's actually really about control and humiliation, like fun, right?
Yeah.
And so in that oscillation, right, actually they have a very poor awareness of their own emotion regulation. They have very poor awareness of their own emotions. They may have their own internal inner conflict in terms of shame or how they view themselves. And this is more like a consequence of an acting out behavior.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not absolving the boys,
Okay,
right?
okay.
So I'm pointing out that this need for control that some young people feel, it's not exclusive
Absolutely.
to boys.
Okay,
Yes.
of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And some of the bullying, the harassment, even the image, right? The deepfake images could be girls doing it on other girls.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So as a form of revenge or bullying or
Yeah, or in the
Malice,
sense of
yes.
yeah, it's some might be mean, kind of a mean girls prank. I guess that's how I might characterize it. It could be bullying, right? But it's not exclusive to the boys.
Absolutely.
In
Yeah.
these cases.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you exactly what you say is right, because that lends support to the narcissistic injury, right? There are more serious internal psyche issues that are actually the root issues that need to be addressed.
Okay, but is it related to the manosphere, because we are seeing a lot more of discussions about boys or men who are involuntarily celibate and decides to circulate such images among their peers?
I think for me, it's quite multifaceted.
Okay.
So I think broadly, we can say these are some of the reasons. But I think despite that, every victim, every perpetrator, the intent or the degree of awareness and the impact it will probably be different.
Okay.
So I think broadly speaking, we can say these are some reasons, but it's really quite important to speak to the victim or even speak to the perpetrator and actually help them understand the experience and process it. So it's not just victims. I think the perpetrators need help.
They need help.
Yes.
They need help. They need help.
Yeah, that's what is probably a gap, right? We can maybe round back and talk about the perpetrators and how we deal with them or help them.
Yeah.
We don't often think about helping the bullies, but sometimes they need help and they may not know it. They may be acting out, and acting out because they don't know how to deal with whatever that's happening within them.
Yeah, so pointing to this then, because a lot of these perpetrators are youth, right? So what do we do with them? Do we punish them? Do we, counsel them and all that? And maybe at a young age they were like young and foolish, right? But in the end they may end up with a crime record also, right?
Yeah, I think this question, right, depends on who you ask.
Okay, of course.
Right? So I'm a psychologist.
If I'm a victim, I will not really be sympathetic.
As in, I
right?
mean, it depends on
Okay.
which occupation you ask.
Yeah, maybe we can play a few hats for this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as a psychologist, I always come from, I think it's important to educate, it's important to come from a place of empathy, compassion, understanding, curiosity, and treatment, right? So I believe that and I think bullies always need help. Yes, the actions can sometimes be indigestible and very bad call, but I shudder to think that if we don't help them, then what's going to happen next? Because deepfake is this time of our life. There's going to be something else that comes up. So I always come from a position where I think curiosity, understanding, helping them to deepen an understanding of themselves so that they can make wiser decisions would help to also form a bit of the landscape of society where we can come from a position of support, empathy, rehabilitation. And that's what I think would be really helpful, right?
Okay.
Like empathy. Of course, there will be empathy within boundaries and where legalistically, where you need to have certain punishments for your behaviors, you must still take the punishments.
I hear the empathy. I hear, I think that's that school of thought of restorative justice. But I want to talk about the kind of the legal requirements. And I think for those, Annabelle, it's a very kind to always focus on the human, right? The better side of human. But from my research, there's the school of thought that you got to look at the extent of the harm, right? The harm caused to the victims.
And to meet out like the appropriate...
the appropriate amount of punishment. There is a deterrence effect when you do that. And then I think in Singapore, especially, if you don't punish,
you get away with it.
I don't think society is really supportive of the notion that you can do. We're not that kind of society yet.
No, sorry, don't get me wrong. I agree with you. I think punishment is important. But maybe I might be wrong about this, but I think if we punish without treatment, or we punish without help, or we punish without education, and that may be something that may be slightly missing in our jigsaw puzzle here, then I think that can actually be almost moot point.
I'm undecided
Okay.
for this, even though I lean more towards the punitive, according to the
There must
act.
be justice, right?
Yes, there must be justice
if I'm a
done.
woman whose deepfakes are circulated everywhere,
Yes,
I would want to see the perpetrator to be punished somehow.
If you listen to the victims, the survivors, they want the perpetrators brought to justice.
Yeah.
Right? They want to pull the perpetrator, that veil of anonymity down from the perpetrator, so that they can take agency. Right? They can take control of their situation and have something done about it. That I support. Where I am still finding my way, it's because we are talking about young people, right? And we've discussed a lot about them, sometimes not knowing the consequences when they do it, but it can still, out of ignorance, can come great harm.
Yeah,
right?
of course. And ignorance is not an excuse, right?
For the harm that is
crime.
caused, and because we need to be fair to the victims and the survivors. So then, but yes, I think even within that enforcement framework or the crime and punishment framework, we should find room for restorative kinds of pathways, reintegrative kind of pathways, especially for the young people.
Okay, we cannot walk away thinking I don't think punishment.
We don't mean that.
We won't.
So while I agree that I think in my beautiful world, in my mind, I think yes, so it's like a spectrum, right? I think actually work needs to be done even before the crime is committed. So I think at the moment, a lot of work can be done in terms of education. In terms of education, not only where do you go and seek help if you become a victim, not only that actually bullies actually need help, but actually education right from the beginning about all of us, increasing awareness of things like our emotional experiences, our mechanisms that we engage in to cope with stress, the impact of our behavior on other people, empathy, right? So I think these are like foundations of a society I would like my children to grow up in. And if we can start to educate and influence people to consider these values, so it's like broad-based values in helping you making decisions, then my hope is that people will less likely engage in such inconsiderate, unkind behaviors. And so they are educated on the use of deepfake, but they will not do it because it's not right? As a value, it's not right. And I personally feel like in a Singapore setting, we have actually been quite successful in terms of instilling certain values in our society. Okay. Like example, diligence.
Yes.
Right? Diligence. Like example, respect.
Yes.
Like example, filial piety.
Yes.
Like these are values that we grow up with and infused into our DNA, right? And I think if we have things like empathy and all that, that will regulate when whatever that technology comes out in my beautiful mind. I hope to regulate.
But there's still a gap, right, in digital literacy and the kind of education that should happen in our schools.
So
right?
I want to build on what Annabelle has shared, which is yes, I think we have values. We have Singapore values. We generally we are a kind society, right? But I think the gap there is when the technology is at hand, right? When it is the values associated with these technology. I'm thinking about how our national kind of digital literacy program emphasizes on the hard skills, how to use the PayLah and how to scan a QR code, how to take a picture and so on, right? Or to read news on the mobile phone. But we don't teach the values that go with these skills, right? The soft skills that accompany the use of technology and the kind of values associated with the technology, right? Then you see in Singapore, you see cases where there are communities around things like people who, the social vigilantes, right? When they whipped up their phone and then they take pictures and videos of other Singaporeans, they say, like this camera. I mean, it's not very empathetic. They don't even consider, the kind of the position of the people they're taking images or videos of. So yes, we have strong values, but maybe there is a gap where in the use of technology, the values don't translate.
Correct. I agree. There is a gap. And there is definitely a gap. And despite that, but I do we've worked with friends and people who have been trying to fill that gap. Albeit, albeit slower than so see, technology is so fast paced, right? It changes when we are sleeping, like so much happens so quickly. And we don't have enough people or resources, maybe, I don't know, to catch up with that. But I do know of friends and organizations where they're trying their best. So even in school settings, people are going to school settings to educate about scams, for example. This didn't happen when I was in school. And so there's a starting point. And I think I'm heartened to know that there's a starting point. I think definitely more needs to be done. More widespread media literacy about media needs to happen. Maybe the TV is a really quick one because mainstream TV, hopefully most of the Singaporeans still watch them. You have a really good advertisement, a really good drama, and that's what they're doing with the scams, right? They do it through movies, they do it through TV, and you do education in different languages. And I think that's the gap that needs to be filled quite urgently.
I love that you talked about schools. So, and in schools, there's another group, which is not the students, the young people. Definitely, we should tailor the training programs or the digital literacy programs that are appropriate for the age. So, primary school students different from the secondaries, from the older students. But there is another group that we don't often talk about, and that is the teachers. And then if we talk about, so I talk to teachers who are managing students who may have gotten in trouble with online harms. And when you talk to the teachers, they really struggle. Because yes, the young people are definitely better. So any safeguards they put on the technology, the children, the young people can unlock and run circles around the adult, right? But the real struggle is that the teachers, the educators, caregivers, they find it difficult to walk that line between the adult figure, where you have to make sure they learn the right lesson and enforce things when things go wrong, but they also have to maintain a certain rapport with their charges or their students, because they need to be available to them when bad things happen. And the young people need to come to them. So how do you walk that line?
I feel like you're describing what it means to be a parent. Right, so parent, that's exactly
but
what...
parents may be at a loss also, right? What should they do, right?
So I think that's where the education needs to set in. A lot of education actually needs to happen quite urgently. Education about different things, right? From the technology part to even understanding ourselves deeper in terms of our emotion regulation skills and how to communicate effectively, the consequences of behaviors, things like that. I think education about the law is also quite important. Hey, there are legal consequences for your behavior. You better know what they are, and also where to seek help from, where to go to, who do I speak to. Even things like relationship between parents and children come into play, right? Because in my experience, the adolescent can go through this. They don't feel like they can speak to their parents about it. Because my parents will blame me. My parents will say, but you are the one who posts your photo on Instagram, on Facebook, so people have access to them, and then they can use it. And then that comes down to familiar with ties and relationships, right? So I think it's so complex and multifaceted, and there's so much work that needs to be done and can be done.
Okay.
different
But,
areas.
Han, I want to bring you in here because are there existing laws or school policies in Singapore that can adequately deal with this issue? What's the blind spot? What happens after you call the police? Or can you call the police?
Yes, you can. So yes, you can. But I think the tricky bit now is when you call the police,
Okay.
and no harm done. If it's not, there is no harm. So like cyber stalking and all that, unless you can prove that harm has been done to a person, the police cannot act. So that was my learning.
It's not just cyber. This is not just cyber.
Okay.
Even physical.
Physical.
Yeah.
No harm done cannot.
But there is harm. There is, right?
The definition,
The
of
definition
harm
of harm is-
legalistically is different.
Okay.
So we have gaps even within our current legal framework. We have laws that talk that address the content. We have laws that address the kind of the apps and the sexual content on social media. But we are quite. I think there's a big gap for remedies. We don't have a lot of laws that allow the victim of these harms to seek help. So now I can share that you can go to She, because She Cares will provide that wraparound. When I say wraparound, it is counseling. So we'll have counseling. We have the pro bono lawyers for the legal kind of advice on what they can do, right? Apply for protection orders and so on. And then, of course, the counselors are there. You can, if it escalates to a police case, then we can actually get the police to come to the victim support center. So you don't have to tell the same story twice. And then other wraparound service that are important is like we have that trusted flagger program where we can tell the platforms that this content is unacceptable, it's egregious, it goes against your guidelines, community guidelines, please take it down. And it will be taken down very, very quickly, like 24 hours kind of take down. And if you talk to the victims, that is what they need. But if from my description, I hope we get a sense that is the amount of support that a victim or a survivor needs. This is at triage. We are triaging the first occurrence. And we've not even started to talk about the long journey yet.
Okay. Right? But I understand there's going to be a new dedicated government agency to provide timely and effective assistance to victims of online harm, right? Han, can you tell us more about this?
So the Singapore government has, I think it was actually PM Wong has announced the new online safety commission that will be launched next year in 2026. And this center will help victims of online harms. It will have powers to compel the platforms to provide the details of the perpetrators.
Yeah.
And also, I think they will be debating, they are working on the details, but allow the victim to seek damages from the perpetrators. And I think that's one powerful way of starting the healing journey, because it allows the victims to take control.
Seek
reprieve, right? Right now, we don't have any of these mechanisms, right? Our mechanisms are protective in nature.
Yeah. But I think that's a huge deterrent. Like, I see that as a deterring, like when you have all these rules and laws in place, it also acts as a deterrence.
Deterrence to the perpetrators.
Correct.
Yes,
deterrence
because
to the perpetrators.
correct. Yeah.
Because now I cannot be anonymous, right? Now I have more responsibility, and now I'm very clear that there are all these consequences.
Yep.
So it also acts as a deterrence to the perpetrators.
Okay. But can platforms do more, like, stop the problem at the butt, right? Like, stop the apps from circulating, stop people from downloading it.
We have stakeholders in the tech companies as well. I mean, they work very hard. I want to give some credit, especially to the trust and safety professionals who do work very hard. But of course, as hard as they work, I mean, the malicious content just keeps popping up.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a whack-a-mole, you take off that content, 10 of them come up. Right? You take off one app, one notification app from the App Store. They will just go somewhere else to distribute.
Yeah.
And so yes, they work very hard. But I think something that can work harder is maybe to introduce more friction into kind of like the production, and also like before you share things like that. So let's just say the prompts, right?
Okay.
When we talk about generative AI and prompts, can we introduce more frictions to the prompts? Like if they start to type words like undressing,
Okay.
right? Can the algorithms or the platforms pop up a warning and say, do you really want to do this, right? Or don't make it so accessible where you can just type something and you can undress people,
or not provide the response.
and some of the platforms and the kind of apps do have these safety by design, but it's not standardized, right? And if you are good enough, you can get around it.
Yeah, because as you're saying that, I'm thinking how fast paced this is, right? You put that prompts in, and then there'll be a new set of prompts, there'll be a new set of words. So it's like almost like scam work, right? You're always chasing
it's always
after a train that has just
Yeah.
left. Yeah.
At this point, I think I might out myself a little bit.
Okay. I'm a bit worried about what you're going to say next.
So when I was watching this, as I was watching this, the deepfake technology unfold, and this was just earlier this year, when I heard that on Grok AI, so Elon Musk's AI, you can easily, and this is X, so the young people have X on their phones
Twitter,
already, right? So you could just with a few like commands on Grok undress the images that have already been shared on the platforms. So, I mean, I read reports because these are weak
It's a
signals.
dangerous world we live in.
Yes. So of course, I couldn't subject other people, real or synthetic, to this test.
Yeah.
So I offered myself as the ultimate sacrifice to science.
Okay.
I undressed myself.
Okay.
And
How realistic is it?
but first of all, it's not as easy as undress me.
Okay.
Right? You
Okay.
do need to be a little bit creative to get around some of the very, very basic guardrails. Like
Okay.
you cannot undress, you cannot type in a prompt and undress a picture just like that. But with some creative prompts, I was able to do that. And the resulting image was very scary. So now it sits password protected on my phone. Because I still need-
No, you delete it.
No,
You know, after this video goes out, people will be hunting for it. Delete
no, I did not upload. It was only so. Yes,
It
but
can
I
still
needed
be on
to.
your iCloud.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's
Okay.
not on my
Okay.
iCloud.
Okay.
It's password.
God, haven't you watched enough like Mission Impossible movies?
Yeah.
Like they can
It will
still.
just get leaked,
No,
right?
I need proof that it can be done.
Are you
Okay.
ever going to show anybody?
Never.
Then
Never.
delete it.
Never. But I can say with conviction. But now I can tell you with conviction that it can be done, and it's quite easily done.
Okay, I'm going to remind you, Han. Delete it. Otherwise, you will probably need an appointment with me like 6 months down in my clinic. Delete it. Like, don't save it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because I think there were a lot of conversations about iCloud detecting this kind of like images and getting rid of it. Don't even store it on iCloud. And this kind of discussions and in tech companies and all, right?
I can say that it's not on iCloud.
Okay,
It's
okay,
password
okay,
protected. But I
okay.
keep evidence of my scientific experiment.
Okay.
Okay.
I still need
Okay.
proof that
Okay.
their algorithms are not strong enough.
Okay.
But I will take your advice so that I don't have to come and see you 6 months later. But
Yeah.
if to me, when looking at the image, it was quite obscene. Right?
Okay.
It's unspeakable actually.
But see, I imagine that you see like young people particularly because they are on their phones all the time, right? Like most of us are on our phones all the time, but the younger people are on it even more. And so they are even more tech savvy and they will know how to work
And they're
prompts.
tempted to experiment also.
Correct. And they have time, right? Then they can experiment. And so they learn faster. They, things change faster.
And yeah, this is me, boomer, doing it. I cannot imagine, right, what the young people could be doing, right, with the same very basic processes.
I think the one thing that a lot of people are looking out for is to ban this kind of apps, get rid of it, prevent people from doing it in the first place, right?
So I think, we discussed that. I mean, the tech, it's not that most of the tech companies, the big tech companies, they are trying to do that. I think Apple took down most of the notification apps from their app store, whatever they could find and take down. So at the app store level, at least the Apple Store is doing something, right? And of course, the trust and safety units from different social media companies, they try, right? They try. But I don't think, and I know where you are going with this, I don't think banning is the most, it's not the solution that will solve the problem. I think if we ban social media, the young people are just going to go to places that are even less regulated. I mean, when you say ban social media, it sounds like a great idea, but what is social media? Is it just the big social platforms that the young people are doing? Is the chat? Is the chat, the instant messaging platforms, is that also social media?
Okay.
Right? Or online chat communities like Discord. Is that social media?
Telegram also?
Yeah, Telegram. So because if they cannot post on IG or X, they'll just
move
share
to another platform.
Correct.
Right?
They'll just find WhatsApp groups, Telegram groups to share. And then that's even more unregulated.
And I think this will be actually it'll be interesting. Like, it's interesting you brought this up because in recent, I think was it last year or the year before, Australia actually banned social media, right? And then Singapore, I understand, is also considering that. There's been some chat about that. So I agree with you. I don't think banning something is the be all and that's it. That's the solution. Definitely more education, but I also can't help but wonder whether there is some extent of efficacy where we are just restricting the range a bit more, like restricting channels, because the people who use these channels more regularly, they are the ones who have incomplete neurodevelopmental stages, right? They don't have a fully developed prefrontal cortex. And if we restrict the range, then hopefully it also restricts until they are a bit more ready. Not all.
Yeah, I think that's the approach, right? We need to let them use social media gradually. So when they are younger, have more guardrails, more control on the content. And then as they get older, they get more and more features. I think some of the platforms, LinkedIn, I don't know why young children want to be on LinkedIn, but so they have kind of like the age-related features in different countries, right? To slowly kind of release features for age-appropriate features. So I think that's the way to go, because you cannot just plonk young people into a world of social media at 16? Right, 16.1 day or 18.1 day.
Then miraculously you can use the app.
Correct. So this has to be done. This has to be done gradually.
Okay. So in conclusion, then, if you could each make one urgent recommendation, just one thing, to protect our youth from this misuse of deepfake technology, what would it be?
One is too few.
Just one.
God, that's hard. You want to go first?
No, I'm going to break the rule and say
no, break the rule. Just one last one.
Okay, I'll go first.
Okay,
so maybe what I will say it is, maybe I'll call out more to the victims that it's not your fault. I think I want the victims to know clearly that it's not your fault. And I want them to know that help is available and it's important to talk about your experience. That go speak to someone about it. Don't deal with this by yourself. Don't sit alone in this experience. So I want them to know that they can seek help.
Okay. Han?
We've already spoken about some of the laws. We've already spoken about what the platforms can do and what they can do a bit more in. We talk about education, but maybe
the most urgent
not the most urgent, but I think the one that can move the needle most is kind of like to talk about our norms, right? Which I want to circle back to it and say what is okay to do to another Singaporean or another person on the net, right, on the internet, right? That norm conversation is probably the toughest to kind of define, But I think it's important to have those important conversations about social norms, what is acceptable for you, for different groups of people, so that we can come to a common understanding of what is acceptable in our society and community.
Okay. So with that, thank you, Hani. Thank you, Annabelle, for joining us today at this episode of Singapore Unpacked. If you enjoyed this episode, do follow or subscribe to the show, leave a rating, or share with someone who cares about Singapore's future as much as you do. Thank you all for listening in. See you on the next episode of Singapore Unpacked.